Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the Horizon's Edge. He was tired. 8 months in deep space could do that to a person. His brown hair needed a cut, and his uniform needed a good wash. But none of that mattered right now. They had a job to do. The Horizon's Edge was not a warship. It was an exploration vessel, sent out by Earth to map new worlds and find places where humans could live someday. Jake's crew of 43 people worked hard every day, scanning planets and taking notes on everything they found. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Grant sat at her station, staring at her screen. She was the ship's expert on alien life. Her job was to study any living things they might find. Today, she was scanning a planet called Kepler 442c. It was a dusty world with purple sand and not much else. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange," Lisa said. She pushed her blonde hair behind her ear and leaned closer to her screen. "There's a ship down there. It looks like it crashed." Jake walked over to her station. "Can you tell who it belongs to?" Lisa typed on her keyboard and brought up a better image. "The markings say it's Vrelnari. That's not good news." Everyone on the bridge got quiet. The Vrelnari were trouble. They were a race of tall reptilian creatures who loved war and fighting. They had sharp teeth, scales like armor, and yellow eyes that could freeze your blood. Humans and Vrelnari had never fought a war, but they didn't trust each other either. "How long has it been there?" Jake asked. "Based on the dust covering it, I'd say at least 3 months. Maybe longer." Jake made a decision. "Get a team ready. We're going down to check it out." His first officer, Commander Ryan Palmer, looked worried. "Sir, is that wise? The Vrelnari don't like it when other species touch their property." "I know," Jake said. "But if there are survivors, we have to help them. It's the right thing to do." 2 hours later, Jake, Lisa, and 4 other crew members stood outside the crashed ship. The purple sand blew around their boots. The Vrelnari vessel was half buried, its metal hull twisted and broken. Scorch marks showed where fires had burned. Peter Hughes, the science officer, scanned the ship with his handheld device. "I'm reading dead bodies inside. At least 6 of them. But there's something else. Another life sign, very faint." They carefully entered through a torn opening in the hull. Inside, the ship was dark and cold. Emergency lights flickered, casting strange shadows. They found the bodies of the Vrelnari crew. Death had not been kind to them. "This way," Peter said, following his scanner deeper into the ship. They came to a small room. In the corner, covered by a protective shield, was a survival pod. Inside the pod was a small creature with silvery fur and large amber eyes. It looked up at them and made a soft chirping sound. "It's a child," Lisa whispered. "A Vrelnari child." Jake knelt down beside the pod. The little creature watched him with fear in its eyes. It couldn't be more than 3 or 4 years old if Jake had to guess. It was thin, too thin. The survival pod had kept it alive, but just barely. "Can we open it?" Jake asked. Lisa nodded and carefully disabled the shield. The small Vrelnari shrank back, making frightened noises. Lisa moved slowly, speaking in a soft voice, even though the child couldn't understand her words. After a few minutes, the little one reached out a tiny hand. Jake looked at his team. "We're taking it with us." "Sir," Ryan said over the radio from the ship, "that could cause a diplomatic incident. The Vrelnari might see it as kidnapping." "The alternative is leaving a child to die alone on this planet," Jake replied. "I won't do that. We'll contact the Vrelnari and explain everything. They'll understand." But Jake was wrong about that. Back on the Horizon's Edge, Dr. Helen Carter examined the young Vrelnari in the medical bay. Helen was in her 50s with gray hair and kind eyes. She had seen a lot in her career, but never anything like this. "The poor thing is malnourished," Helen said, running her medical scanner over the small body, "but otherwise healthy. I'll need to learn about Vrelnari biology to care for it properly." The crew gathered around, curious and concerned. Someone brought a blanket and the little Vrelnari wrapped it around itself like a cocoon. It seemed to like the warmth. "We need a name," Lisa said. "We can't just call it the child. How about Nova?" suggested Sophie Davis, one of the younger crew members. "Like a new star." The little Vrelnari looked up at the sound and chirped. Everyone smiled. Nova it was. Over the next few days, Nova slowly began to trust the humans. Lisa spent the most time with her, bringing food and toys. Nova learned quickly. She understood that the humans meant no harm. She started following Lisa around the ship, holding onto her hand with tiny fingers. Danny Mitchell, the communications officer, tried every day to reach the Vrelnari government. He sent messages on all the standard frequencies. He explained what happened and asked for instructions on how to return Nova safely. No one answered. "It's strange," Danny said to Jake one evening. "Usually the Vrelnari respond to everything, even if it's just to tell us to go away. This silence is unusual." Jake stood looking out at the stars through the window of his quarters. He had a bad feeling about this, a feeling that wouldn't go away. "Keep trying," he told Danny, "every day. Make sure our messages are clear. We rescued a child from a crashed ship. We want to return her to her people. They need to know we're not the enemy here." But somewhere in deep space, a Vrelnari admiral named Tharzan had just learned about his brother's missing ship. He had been searching for 3 months with 12 battle fleets, and now he had finally picked up a signal. A human ship had been near the crash site. Tharzan's yellow eyes burned with rage. His brother, High Commander Zarketh, was dead. His niece, little Nova, was missing. And the humans had been there. To Tharzan, it could only mean one thing. The humans had attacked his brother's ship. They had killed the crew, and they had taken Nova for some terrible purpose he couldn't imagine. He ordered his fleet to change course. They would find these humans. They would make them pay. Vrelnari justice would be swift and brutal. On the horizon's edge, Nova laughed as Sophie showed her a magic trick with disappearing coins. The crew had grown to love the little alien child. She brought joy to their long journey through space. None of them knew that a storm was coming. A storm that would threaten to tear apart the peace between two species. A storm that would test everything they believed about honor, justice, and doing the right thing. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge watching the stars, unaware that his simple act of mercy had set events in motion that would change the galaxy forever. 3 months passed quickly aboard the horizon's edge. Nova had become part of the family. She no longer hid in corners or flinched when people approached. Instead, she ran through the hallways playing with crew members and learning new things every day. Lisa Grant had become like a mother to her. Every morning, Nova would wake up and look for Lisa first. They would eat breakfast together in the mess hall where Nova tried human food and made faces at the things she didn't like. She loved sweet things, especially fruit. "She's smart," Lisa told Jake one afternoon. "Really smart. She's already learning some English words. Watch this." Lisa pointed at a cup. "Nova, what's this?" "Cup," Nova said in her small voice. Then she picked it up. "Lisa cup," Jake smiled. It was hard to believe this sweet child came from a race known for their warriors and battle fleets. She was just a kid, innocent and full of wonder. Dr. Helen Carter had learned a lot about Vrelnari biology. She discovered that they needed more protein than humans and that they could see colors humans couldn't. Nova's large amber eyes could see into the ultraviolet spectrum, which made the ship's lights look different to her than to the crew. Danny Mitchell still sent messages to the Vrelnari every single day. Still no one replied. It bothered him. It bothered everyone. Why wouldn't they answer? Didn't they want their child back? The answer came on a Tuesday morning at 0600 hours. "Captain to the bridge, now." Ryan Palmer's voice boomed through the ship's speakers, waking everyone up. Jake ran to the bridge in his sleeping clothes. When he arrived, he saw why Ryan had sounded so scared. On the main screen was a Vrelnari war fleet. 6 massive ships, each one 3 times the size of the horizon's edge, surrounded them in a circle. "They just appeared," Ryan said, "all at once. They must have been tracking us." "Hail them," Jake ordered. "Tell them we want to talk." A moment later, the screen changed. A tall Vrelnari in military armor appeared. His scales were dark green, and his yellow eyes looked cold and angry. Scars covered his face and neck, marks of many battles. "I am Admiral Tharzan of the Vrelnari Collective," the alien said. His voice was deep and harsh. "You are Captain Jake Morrison of the human ship Horizon's Edge." "Yes," Jake said. "Admiral, we've been trying to contact your people for 3 months. We found a crashed ship on Kepler 442c. Everyone was dead except for a child. We rescued her. She's safe and healthy. We've been taking good care of her." Tharzan's eyes narrowed. "You expect me to believe this story? You just happened to find my brother's ship? You just happened to find my niece? And you kept her for 3 months? Your brother?" Jake felt his stomach sink. This was worse than he thought. "Admiral, I'm so sorry for your loss. The crash happened at least 3 months before we arrived. There was nothing we could do for the crew. We could only save the child. Her name is Nova," Tharzan said, "and you will bring her to me now." Jake glanced at Ryan, then back at the screen. "Of course. We want to return her to her family. That's what we've been trying to do. Give us coordinates and we'll bring her to you. No, Tarzan said. You will prepare to be boarded. I will come to your ship, and then you will come with me to face trial for kidnapping and murder. Murder? Jake stood up straight. Admiral, we didn't murder anyone. The ship crashed. The systems failed. We have all the data from the site. We can show you everything. Convenient, Tarzan said. Humans find a high-ranking officer's child. Humans claim everyone else died in an accident. Humans keep the child for months without proper notification. To me, this looks like a plan. A human plan. That's not what happened, Jake said, trying to stay calm. We sent hundreds of messages to your government. We got no reply. We've been trying to return Nova since the day we found her. I see no record of these messages, Tarzan said. We will dock at the nearest station. Crossroads Hub is 2 days from here. You will meet me there. If you run, my fleet will destroy you. If you fight, my fleet will destroy you. Your only choice is to cooperate. The screen went black. The bridge was silent. Everyone looked at Jake, waiting for orders. Get us to Crossroads Hub, Jake finally said. And someone wake up Nova. We need to tell her what's happening. 2 days later, the Horizon's Edge docked at Crossroads Hub, a massive space station that served as neutral ground for many species. The station was run by a human named Luis Ramirez, a former military officer who believed in fair dealing and honest work. Tarzan arrived with 20 armed warriors. They marched through the station like they owned it, their weapons visible, their faces showing no emotion. People moved out of their way quickly. When they reached the Horizon's Edge, Jake met them at the airlock. Lisa stood beside him, holding Nova's hand. The little Vrilnari seemed confused and scared by all the armored warriors. Tarzan stopped when he saw Nova. For a moment, his hard face softened. He knelt down and spoke to her in the Vrilnari language. Nova answered, her voice small and uncertain. Then Tarzan stood up and his face was hard again. She says you have been kind to her. She says you saved her life. But children can be fooled. Children can be manipulated. You had 3 months to fill her head with lies. We told her the truth, Lisa said. We told her we found her after a crash. We told her we were looking for her family. We told her we wanted to take her home. Then why did she not go into the escape pod's distress signal? Tarzan demanded. Why did my brother's emergency beacon stop working? Jake exchanged looks with Lisa. We don't know. The ship's systems were badly damaged. Maybe the beacon failed in the crash, or maybe someone turned it off, Tarzan said. Someone who didn't want us to find the ship too soon. Someone who wanted time to take my niece far away. Admiral, please, Jake said. Look at Nova. Does she look hurt? Does she look scared of us? We've treated her like one of our own. We gave her food, shelter, and love. We're not monsters. Tarzan looked at Nova again. The child was holding Lisa's hand tightly, but she didn't look terrified. She looked sad and confused, like she didn't understand why her uncle was so angry at her friends. You will come with me, Tarzan said to Jake. You and your senior officers. You will stand trial on the Vrilnari homeworld. The Circle of Claws will decide your fate. I can't do that, Jake said. Vrilnari law doesn't protect non-Vrilnari. We won't get a fair trial. Then you admit your guilt, Tarzan said. No. I admit that I don't trust your justice system to be fair to humans. Tarzan's hand moved to his weapon. His warriors did the same. On the Horizon's Edge, Jake's security team raised their own guns. The situation was seconds away from violence. Luis Ramirez appeared, stepping between the two groups. Gentlemen, please. This is a neutral station. No fighting here. Admiral Tarzan. Perhaps the Galactic Council could investigate this matter. They have authority to examine evidence and make fair judgments. The Vrilnari Collective does not answer to the Galactic Council, Tarzan said. We make our own justice. Then you'll make it somewhere else, Luis said firmly. Not on my station. Captain Morrison, take your ship and leave. Admiral, you and your warriors need to return to your vessels. Tarzan stared at Luis for a long moment. Then he looked at Jake. You have 1 day. 1 day to bring Nova and surrender yourself. If you do not, I will take you by force, and this time I won't be polite about it. He turned and left, his warriors following him. Jake let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Beside him, Nova started to cry. Lisa picked her up and held her close, whispering that everything would be okay. But Jake wasn't sure that was true. Not anymore. The deadline came too fast. Jake Morrison sat in his quarters, staring at the wall. He had less than an hour to make a decision that would affect not just his life, but the lives of his entire crew, and possibly all of humanity. A knock came at his door. "Come in," he said. Lisa Grant entered, looking tired and worried. "Nova is asking for you. She wants to know what's happening." Jake rubbed his face with his hands. "What do I tell her? That her uncle thinks we're criminals? That he wants to put us on trial in a system where we have no rights? Tell her the truth," Lisa said, sitting down across from him. "She's smart enough to understand that sometimes good people face bad situations." "I can't surrender to them," Jake said. "You know what will happen. We'll disappear into some Vrelnari prison and no one will ever see us again. Our government will protest, but it won't matter. So what do? Jake looked at her. "We run. We get back to human space as fast as we can. We let our government handle the diplomatic side of things. Tharzon won't let us leave peacefully." "I know." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Lisa spoke again. "There's something else. Kyle Roberts has been analyzing the debris we brought back from the crash site. He found something strange." Jake's attention focused. "What kind of strange?" "The kind that suggests the crash wasn't an accident." 10 minutes later, Jake stood in the ship's engineering bay with Kyle Roberts and Peter Hughes. Kyle was a thin man with glasses who always had grease on his hands from working on machines. He brought up images on a screen. "Look at this," Kyle said, pointing to a piece of twisted metal. "This is part of the ship's power regulator. It's been modified. Someone deliberately changed the settings so the system would overload and fail." "Are you sure?" Jake asked. "Positive, and that's not all. The navigation computer was tampered with too. Someone programmed it to take the ship off course, away from normal patrol routes. Whoever did this wanted that ship to crash in the middle of nowhere, where no one would find it for a long time." Peter added, "The modifications used Vrelnari technology, military-grade stuff. This wasn't done by pirates or some outside force. This was done by someone inside the Vrelnari military." Jake felt his blood run cold. "You're saying this was murder? Someone killed Nova's father and his whole crew on purpose?" "That's exactly what I'm saying," Kyle confirmed. "And we walked right into the middle of it," Jake said quietly. "No wonder Tharzon is so angry. If this was an inside job, then someone in the Vrelnari government wanted his brother dead." "Maybe Tharzon himself," Lisa shook her head. "Or maybe he doesn't know. Maybe he genuinely thinks we did it. Either way, we have evidence that could start a civil war among the Vrelnari," Jake said. "The question is, what do we do with it?" Before anyone could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Ryan Palmer's voice came over the speakers. "Captain, to the bridge immediately." "We're under attack!" Jake ran to the bridge. When he arrived, he saw chaos. The Vrelnari ships were firing on them. The horizon's edge shook as weapons hit their shields. "Status," Jake shouted. "Shields at 70% and falling," Ryan reported. "They're not trying to destroy us, just disable us. They want to board, return fire, target their weapons systems only. I don't want to kill anyone if we can help it." The horizon's edge fired back. It was not a warship, but it had defensive weapons. Their shots hit one of the Vrelnari vessels, disabling its forward guns. The battle lasted only minutes, but it felt like hours. 3 Vrelnari warriors died when their boarding shuttle was hit by debris. One human security officer, Greg Palmer, was killed when a power conduit exploded near the airlock. Finally, station security intervened. Luis Ramirez threatened to destroy any ship that continued fighting. Reluctantly, both sides stopped shooting, but the damage was done. Vrelnari warriors had died at human hands. Tharzon's rage was now beyond words. He appeared on the screen, his face twisted with fury. "You have killed my people," he said. "You have murdered warriors of the Vrelnari collective. This is an act of war. You are no longer criminals facing trial. You are enemies who will be hunted across the galaxy. There is no place you can hide. There is no place you can run. The Vrelnari will have their justice." The screen went black. Jake looked around his bridge. His crew looked scared. They had just become wanted by one of the most powerful military forces in the galaxy. "Get us out of here," Jake ordered. "Maximum speed. Set course for Earth." The horizon's edge broke away from Crossroads Hub and jumped to faster than light speed. Behind them, the Vrelnari fleet gave chase. News of the incident spread across the galaxy in hours. Every species with communication technology heard about it. Humans had found a Vrelnari child. The Vrelnari claimed kidnapping and murder. A fight had broken out. Warriors on both sides had died. On Earth, the government held emergency meetings. Admiral Christina Hayes, head of the Unified Defense Command, listened to reports from her intelligence officers. "Sir, the Vrelnari are mobilizing their fleets," Colonel Nathan Brooks told her. 20 battle groups are moving toward our borders. They're preparing for war. Christina was a tall woman with short gray hair and sharp eyes. She had spent 40 years in the military and had never lost her cool in a crisis. She wasn't about to start now. "What about Captain Morrison's report?" she asked. "We received his full data dump an hour ago. He claims the Vrelnari ship crashed due to systems failure. He rescued a child. He tried to contact Vrelnari authorities for 3 months with no response. Then Admiral Tharzan showed up and accused him of murder. Do we believe him? I believe the sensor logs don't lie. The crash happened months before Morrison arrived. He couldn't have caused it." Christina nodded. "Then we support our people. Send a message to the Vrelnari Collective. Tell them we will not surrender Captain Morrison or his crew. Tell them we want peace, but we will defend ourselves if attacked, and mobilize our own fleets. If they want war, they'll get one." Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council held an emergency session. Representatives from dozens of species gathered to discuss the crisis. Most urged calm and negotiation. Some saw an opportunity to weaken either humans or Vrelnari by supporting one side. But the Vrelnari didn't care about the council. Empress Sharakai, ruler of the Vrelnari Collective, addressed her people in a speech that was broadcast everywhere. "The humans have insulted us," she said. "They have taken one of our children. They have killed our warriors. They refuse to face justice. This cannot stand. We are Vrelnari. We do not forgive. We do not forget. We will have satisfaction, in blood if necessary." The speech was met with cheering from Vrelnari worlds. The military prepared for war. Ships were loaded with weapons. Soldiers trained for battle. The machine of war began to turn. On the horizon's edge, now racing toward Earth with a battle fleet escort, Nova sat with Lisa in her quarters. The little Vrelnari didn't understand everything that was happening, but she knew it was bad. "Why is Uncle Tharzan angry?" Nova asked in her improving English. Lisa didn't know how to answer. How do you explain war to a child? How do you tell her that her rescue might lead to the deaths of millions? "He misses your father," Lisa finally said. "He's sad and angry, and sometimes when people feel that way, they make mistakes." "I miss Papa too," Nova said quietly. "But I don't want to hurt anyone." Lisa pulled her close. "I know, sweetie. None of us want to hurt anyone. But sometimes things get complicated." Nova looked up at her with those big amber eyes. "Will there be a war? Because of me?" Lisa wanted to lie. She wanted to say no, everything would be fine. But she had promised herself to always be honest with Nova. "Maybe," she said. "But if there is, it won't be your fault. You didn't do anything wrong. None of us did. Sometimes bad things happen even when everyone tries to do the right thing." Nova hugged her tighter. Outside the window, stars rushed past as the ship raced toward home, toward safety, toward a future that suddenly seemed very uncertain. Jake Morrison had never been to Earth's military headquarters before. The building was enormous, made of steel and glass, and filled with people who looked much more important than an exploration ship captain. But here he was, standing in a conference room with Admiral Christina Hayes and half a dozen high-ranking officers. "Captain Morrison," Christina said, "we've reviewed all your data. Your story checks out. You did nothing wrong. You saved a child's life." "Thank you, sir," Jake said. "But the Vrelnari don't see it that way." "No, they don't. Which brings us to our problem. We have evidence that could change everything. Your engineer discovered proof that the crash was sabotage." "Are you absolutely certain of this?" "Yes, sir. Kyle Roberts is the best engineer I've ever worked with. If he says the ship was sabotaged, then it was sabotaged." Colonel Nathan Brooks spoke up. "If we reveal this information to the Vrelnari, it could prevent war. But it could also start a civil war within their empire. Someone powerful ordered that hit. They won't want the truth to come out." Christina walked to the window and looked out at the city below. "We have to try. War benefits no one. Captain, how well has Nova adjusted to being with your crew?" "Very well, sir. She's happy, healthy. She trusts us completely." "Good. Because we're going to need her help. We're going to arrange a meeting with Empress Sharakai herself. We'll present our evidence and let her see that her granddaughter is safe and well cared for." Jake felt his stomach drop. Granddaughter? Nova is the Empress's granddaughter. Her son was High Commander Zarketh, one of the most respected warriors in Vrelnari history. Nova is royalty, Captain, which makes this situation even more delicate. 2 weeks later, Jake found himself at Genesis Point, another neutral station even larger than Crossroads Hub. This time, he wasn't alone. Admiral Christina Hayes stood beside him, along with Lisa Grant, who held Nova's hand. A dozen security officers surrounded them. The station was empty except for them and the Vrelnari delegation. The station's owners had been paid handsomely to clear everyone else out. This meeting was too important, too dangerous to have witnesses. When Empress Sharakai arrived, Jake understood immediately why she ruled an empire. She was tall, even for a Vrelnari, with scales that shimmered like polished obsidian. Her eyes were ancient and intelligent. She wore armor decorated with symbols of her rank, and she moved with the grace of a born warrior. But when she saw Nova, everything changed. The Empress's fierce expression melted. She dropped to one knee and opened her arms. Nova hesitated for only a moment, then ran to her grandmother. They spoke in the Vrelnari language, words Jake couldn't understand. But he understood the emotion. Grief, relief, love. The Empress held Nova like she was the most precious thing in the universe. Finally, Sharakai stood up, still holding Nova's hand. She looked at Jake with eyes that could have frozen stars. "You are Captain Morrison, the human who found my granddaughter." "Yes, Your Majesty," Jake said. He had been told the proper way to address her. "My brother-in-law tells me you kidnapped her, that you murdered my son."
"What do you say to these charges?"
"I say they're not true, Your Majesty. We found Nova alone in a crashed ship. Everyone else was dead. We saved her life and tried to return her to your people for 3 months. We were ignored. We did nothing wrong. So you claim." Sharakai looked at Nova. "Child, did these humans hurt you?" Nova shook her head quickly. "No, grandmother. They were kind. Lisa gave me food and toys. Dr. Helen made me feel better when I was sick. Captain Jake told me stories. They saved me." Sharakai's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. "Children can be fooled." "Your Majesty," Admiral Christina stepped forward. "With respect, we have evidence you need to see. Evidence that changes everything." Commander Daniel Foster, Earth's intelligence expert, activated a holographic display. Images of the crashed ship appeared, followed by detailed scans of the sabotage systems. "This is your son's ship," Daniel explained. "These modifications were made before the crash. Someone deliberately disabled the power regulators and reprogrammed the navigation computer. The ship was sent to a remote location where it would crash and no one would find it for months." Sharakai's eyes narrowed as she studied the images. "You're saying my son was murdered?" "Yes, Your Majesty. And the technology used was Vrelnari military equipment. High-level military equipment. This was an inside job." The Empress was quiet for a long moment. Jake could see her mind working, processing the information, considering the implications. Finally, she spoke. "Who benefits from my son's death?" "We don't know," Christina said. "But we believe whoever did this also sabotaged our attempts to contact you. They wanted the crash to look like human aggression. They wanted to start a war." Sharakai turned to her advisor, an old Vrelnari named Kresh. They spoke quietly in their own language. Kresh's eyes widened as he listened, then he bowed and left the room quickly. The Empress looked back at the humans. "If what you say is true, then someone in my own military betrayed my son. They killed him and tried to frame your species for it. This is an unforgivable crime." "We believe Admiral Tharzan may be involved," Daniel said carefully.
"He has been advocating for war with humanity for years."
"Your son's death gave him the perfect excuse." "Tharzan?" Sharakai's voice became dangerous. "My son's own brother? We can't prove it yet, Your Majesty. But the circumstantial evidence points in his direction. He had motive, means, and opportunity." Nova tugged on her grandmother's hand. "Grandmother, Uncle Tharzan was mean to my friends. He said bad things about them. He didn't believe them when they told the truth." Sharakai looked down at her granddaughter, then back at the humans. For the first time, Jake saw something that might have been respect in her eyes. "I have made a grave error," the Empress said. "I allowed my grief to blind me. I assumed the worst of your species without examining the evidence. For this I apologize." The room went dead silent. A Vrelnari Empress apologizing to humans was unheard of. It had never happened in recorded history. Christina recovered first. "Your Majesty, we understand your pain. We would have reacted the same way if the situation were reversed. What matters now is finding the truth and preventing a war that neither of our peoples want. Agreed, SCIFI said. I will investigate this matter personally. If Tharzan is responsible, he will face justice. No one, not even family, is above the law. What about Captain Morrison and his crew? Christina asked. Will you drop the charges against them? All charges are dismissed, SCIFI declared. Captain Morrison acted with honor. He saved my granddaughter when he could have left her to die. For this, he has my gratitude and the gratitude of the Vrelnari people. Jake felt a weight lift from his shoulders, but the Empress wasn't finished. However, I must warn you, my investigation will be dangerous. Tharzan has many followers. If he believes we know the truth, he may act rashly. There could be violence. There could be civil war. We'll help however we can, Christina said. We don't want war either with you or within your empire. SCIFI nodded. Then we are allies, at least for now. Kresh will coordinate with your people. We will share intelligence and work together to expose the traitors. She knelt down again and spoke to Nova. Little one, would you like to come home with me? Nova looked up at Lisa, then back at her grandmother. Can Lisa come too? And Captain Jake? And all my friends? SCIFI's lips curved into something that might have been a smile. Your friends must return to their own ship. But you can visit them. And perhaps when this is over, you can spend time with both your families, the humans who saved you and your own people. Nova seemed satisfied with this answer. She hugged Lisa tightly, then went to Jake and hugged him too. Thank you for saving me, Nova said. Thank you for being kind. Jake knelt down to her level. You were the easiest person to be kind to, Nova. You're special. Don't ever forget that. As the meeting ended and everyone prepared to leave, Christina pulled Jake aside. You did good, Captain. You might have just prevented a war. I hope so, sir. But I have a feeling the hard part is just beginning. Christina nodded. Tharzan won't go down without a fight. And when he realizes we're on to him, things are going to get ugly fast. She was right. In the Vrelnari fleet, Admiral Tharzan had just received word of the meeting between his sister-in-law and the humans. His informants told him about the evidence, about the sabotage investigation, about the Empress's change of heart. Tharzan sat in his command chair, his yellow eyes glowing with cold fury. He had been so close to the war he wanted, to the conquest of human space, to the glory that should have been his. But now they knew. Now they would hunt him. Now he had to act fast or lose everything. He opened a communication channel to his most loyal commanders. The Empress has been compromised, he told them. She is allied with the humans against her own people. She dishonors my brother's memory. She dishonors all Vrelnari. We cannot allow this to stand. His commanders agreed. They had been waiting for this moment, preparing for it. The time for planning was over. The time for action had come. Admiral Tharzan stood up and gave the order that would split the Vrelnari Empire in two. All ships, battle stations. We're going to war. Not with the humans, not yet. First we remove the weak Empress who has betrayed us. Then we will deal with humanity. The first shots of the Vrelnari Civil War were fired at the Imperial shipyards above the planet Vreln Prime. Admiral Tharzan's forces attacked without warning, destroying 3 loyal ships before they could raise their shields. The surprise was total. The damage was catastrophic. Empress SCIFI received the news while still at Genesis Point. Her face showed no emotion as she listened to the reports, but her hands gripped the arms of her chair hard enough to leave marks in the metal. How many ships has he turned? She asked Kresh. 6 battle fleets, Majesty. Perhaps more. We're still getting reports. And the rest of the military? Loyal to you for now. But Tharzan is spreading lies. He's telling them you've betrayed Vrelnari values. That you've grown weak. That you allied with humans against your own people. SCIFI stood up and walked to the window. Outside, stars glittered peacefully, unaware of the chaos below. Send word to all loyal commanders. Anyone who joins Tharzan's rebellion will be considered a traitor. No mercy, no second chances. Admiral Christina Hayes stepped forward. Your Majesty, Earth stands ready to help. We can provide intelligence support, medical aid, whatever you need. No, SCIFI said firmly. This is a Vrelnari problem. If human ships join this fight, it will only make Tharzan look right. It will push more of my people to his side. With respect, Your Majesty, he's going to attack human targets anyway. He needs this war. It's the only way he can unite your people behind him. SCIFI was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. You're right. He will attack you. And when he does, you may defend yourselves. But do not fire the first shot. Do not give him what he wants. Jake Morrison had been listening to the conversation, feeling useless. His ship, the Horizon's Edge, was not built for war. His crew were explorers, not soldiers. But he couldn't just sit back and do nothing. Your Majesty, Jake said, my crew and I know Tharzon's tactics better than anyone. We've studied his career, his battles. We could help predict his moves. Sharakai looked at him with those ancient eyes. You wish to help me fight my own brother-in-law? I wish to help prevent more deaths. Tharzon killed your son. He's willing to kill millions more to get what he wants. That makes him my enemy too. The Empress considered this. Very well, Captain. But you will stay away from direct combat. Your value is in what you know, not in your guns. Over the next 3 weeks, the war spread across Vrelnari space like a fire. Tharzon attacked key military bases and supply depots. He was smart, hitting targets that would weaken the Empress's ability to fight back while avoiding civilian casualties that might turn public opinion against him. Sharakai responded with equal cunning. She used her intelligence network to identify Tharzon's supporters and cut off their resources. She made speeches to the Vrelnari people, explaining what really happened to her son. Slowly, support for Tharzon began to crumble, but he still had his loyalists, warriors who believed in his vision of a greater Vrelnari empire, commanders who thought the Empress had grown too soft, too willing to compromise with other species. These were fanatics, and fanatics were dangerous. The turning point came at the Nexus Station, a massive military outpost that controlled access to 3 important sectors. Tharzon gathered his remaining forces for one final assault. If he could take the station, he could cut off the Empress's supply lines and force her to negotiate. But he didn't know that Jake Morrison had predicted this move. Working with Vrelnari intelligence, Jake had identified the Nexus Station as the most strategic target weeks ago. The Empress's forces were ready. Captain Victor Chen commanded the human battleship Valiant Dawn, part of the defensive fleet protecting the station. He had orders to stay back unless directly attacked, but his presence alone was important. It showed that humanity stood with the Empress. When Tharzon's fleet arrived, they found themselves facing not just loyal Vrelnari ships, but human vessels as well. The Admiral's yellow eyes blazed with rage. This was exactly what he had wanted, but not like this. He wanted to be the victim, not the aggressor. All ships attack, Tharzon ordered. Show these humans what Vrelnari warriors can do. The battle began. It was massive, involving hundreds of ships on both sides. Explosions lit up the darkness of space. Ships twisted and turned, firing weapons that could destroy a small moon. Jake watched from the Horizon's Edge, which stayed far from the fighting. He had suggested a strategy to the Empress, and now he watched to see if it would work. Instead of meeting Tharzon's forces head-on, the loyal ships focused on disrupting communications and supply lines. They didn't try to destroy every enemy ship. They tried to isolate them, confuse them, make them fight in small groups instead of one coordinated fleet. The human ships helped with this strategy. They had better long-range sensors than Vrelnari vessels, so they could spot enemy movements faster. They shared this information with the Empress's commanders, helping them stay one step ahead. For 3 days, the battle raged. Ships on both sides were destroyed. Thousands of warriors died. But slowly, inevitably, Tharzon's fleet began to fall apart. His ships ran out of ammunition. His commanders lost contact with each other. His perfect plan crumbled. On the 3rd day, Tharzon's flagship was disabled by concentrated fire from both Vrelnari and human ships. The Admiral stood on his bridge, watching his dreams die around him. Sir, we need to evacuate, his second-in-command said. The ship is lost. No, Tharzon said quietly. I will not run. I will not surrender. If I must die, I will die as a warrior. But Empress Sharakai had other plans. She ordered boarding teams to take the flagship and capture Tharzon alive. He would not have the honor of dying in battle. He would face justice for his crimes. The boarding teams found Tharzon in his command chair, surrounded by dead warriors who had fought to the last. He was wounded but alive, his armor cracked and scorched. On your feet, traitor, the team leader said. Tharzon looked up at him with hatred in his eyes. I am no traitor. I did what was necessary for our people's survival. You will see. History will prove me right. History will remember you as the warrior who murdered his own brother, the team leader said. Now move. They brought Tharzon before Empress Sharakai aboard her flagship. Nova was there too, watching from Lisa Grant's arms. She wanted to see the uncle who had caused so much pain. Sharakai looked down at her brother-in-law with cold eyes. Tharzan, you are charged with the murder of High Commander Zarketh, with attempted murder of his daughter Nova, with treason against the Vrelnari Collective, and with starting an illegal war that cost thousands of lives. How do you plead? Guilty, Tharzan said without hesitation. Guilty and proud. Zarketh was weak. He wanted peace with humans. He would have led our people into slavery and submission. I did what had to be done. You murdered your own brother for power, Sharakai said. You tried to murder his child. You used humans as scapegoats for your crime. You betrayed everything the Vrelnari stand for. I betrayed nothing, Tharzan shouted. You are the betrayer. You apologized to humans. You allied with them against your own people. You are the one who dishonors our race. Sharakai stood up. I am the Empress. I decide what honors or dishonors our people, and I decide your fate. She spoke in the ancient Vrelnari legal language, words that had been used for 1,000 years to pass judgment on traitors. She stripped Tharzan of his rank. She stripped him of his name. She stripped him of his clan rights and his place in Vrelnari society. You are no one, she said. You have no name, no family, no honor. You will spend the rest of your life in the darkness of exile, forgotten and alone. This is my judgment, Tharzan said nothing. For a warrior race, this was worse than death. To be unmade, to become nothing, to be erased from history. He was led away by guards, his head down, his spirit broken. Nova watched him go. Will he hurt anyone else? She asked. No, little one, Sharakai said softly. He's finished. The war ended with Tharzan's capture. His remaining forces surrendered or fled to distant sectors. The Vrelnari Collective began the long process of healing and rebuilding. Empress Sharakai kept her promise. She formally recognized humanity as equals. She signed a treaty of mutual defense and cooperation. She opened Vrelnari space to human traders and explorers. On Earth, Jake Morrison received medals from both human and Vrelnari governments. His crew were honored as heroes. But Jake didn't feel like a hero. He felt like someone who had been in the right place at the right time and tried to do the right thing. Lisa Grant accepted a position as Earth's ambassador to the Vrelnari Collective. It meant leaving the horizon's edge, but it also meant she could see Nova regularly. The little Vrelnari had asked for this, wanting her human friend close by. As for Nova herself, she split her time between the Vrelnari royal court and visits to human space. She grew up learning both cultures, speaking both languages, understanding both peoples. She became a symbol of what was possible when different species chose cooperation over conflict. Years passed. The incident that almost started a war became a story told to children. A lesson about the importance of truth, justice, and mercy. Nova grew into a wise and respected diplomat, carrying her grandmother's strength and her human friend's compassion. 10 years had passed since the day Jake Morrison found a small, frightened cub in a crashed ship. 10 years since the galaxy stood on the edge of war. 10 years since everything changed. Jake was older now, with more gray in his hair and more lines around his eyes. He still commanded the horizon's edge, still exploring distant worlds and mapping new sectors. But he was different. The events of that time had changed him, made him understand how fragile peace could be. Today, he stood in the observation deck of his ship, looking out at a planet called Unity. It was a new world, jointly colonized by humans and Vrelnari. The first of its kind. Below he could see cities being built, farms being planted, two species working together to create something new. Captain, you have a visitor, Ryan Palmer said over the intercom. Ryan was still his first officer, still his friend. Some things never changed. Send them in, Jake said. The door opened and Nova walked in. But she was not the small cub he remembered. She was a young adult now, tall and graceful, her silvery fur shining in the starlight. She wore diplomatic robes that showed her rank as an ambassador between their two peoples. Captain Jake, Nova said, smiling. She had kept the habit of calling him that, even though protocol said she should use more formal titles. Nova, Jake said, opening his arms. She hugged him, and for a moment she was that scared little cub again, seeking comfort and safety. I came to see the colony, Nova said, stepping back. Grandmother wanted a report on how things are progressing. Your grandmother is well? Old and stubborn, Nova said with affection. She refuses to step down, even though the circle of claws thinks she should retire. She says she'll rule until the stars go out. Jake laughed. That sounded like Empress Sharakai. And you? How are you handling life as a diplomat? Nova walked to the window and looked down at Unity. It's harder than I expected. There are still people on both sides who don't trust each other. Who remember the fighting? Who think we were better off separate? Change is always hard, Jake said. But look at what we've built. 10 years ago, this would have been impossible. Now humans and Vrelnari are building homes together, raising children together, creating a future together. Because of what you did, Nova said quietly. Because you chose to save one small cub instead of leaving her to die. I did what anyone would do. No, Nova said firmly. Most people would have followed protocol. Most people would have avoided the complications. You chose compassion over convenience. That choice changed everything. They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the planet below. Then Nova spoke again. I never thanked you properly. Not just for saving my life, but for everything after. For fighting for me. For standing up to my uncle. For helping end the war. You don't need to thank me, Nova. You were worth fighting for. Still, Nova said, I want you to know what it meant. What it still means. You and Lisa and Dr. Helen and everyone on this ship. You gave me a family when I had lost everything. You showed me that kindness exists across species lines. You taught me that courage isn't about fighting. It's about doing what's right even when it's hard. Jake felt his throat tighten with emotion. You've become everything I hoped you would be. Smart, strong, compassionate. Your father would be proud. Nova's eyes grew sad. I wish I remembered him better. I was so young when he died. Sometimes I think I only remember what people have told me about him. He was a good warrior, Jake said. But more than that, he was a good person. He believed in honor and justice. He believed that strength should be used to protect the weak, not to dominate them. Those beliefs live on in you. And in the alliance between our peoples, Nova added. The treaty is named after him. The Zarketh Accord. Every human in Vrelnari learns about it in school. Jake nodded. It was fitting. High Commander Zarketh's death had nearly caused a war. Instead, it had become the foundation for the strongest alliance in the galaxy. Come on, Jake said. Let me show you something. He led Nova through the ship to a special room near the crew quarters. Inside was a memorial wall. On it were pictures and names of everyone who had died in the conflict. Greg Palmer, the security officer killed at Crossroads Hub. The 3 Vrelnari warriors who died in the same fight. The thousands who died in the Civil War. And at the center, a picture of Zarketh himself. We remember them all, Jake said. The price of peace was paid in blood. We don't forget that. Nova touched her father's picture gently. Do you think it was worth it? All the pain, all the death? I think it was necessary, Jake said. Sometimes the only way to peace is through conflict. But yes, when I see worlds like Unity, when I see humans and Vrelnari working together, when I see you standing here as a bridge between our peoples, I think it was worth it. They left the memorial room and walked to the mess hall. The crew was having dinner, and many of them remembered Nova from when she was small. They gathered around, asking questions, sharing stories, laughing together. Lisa Grant was there too. She had left her position as ambassador last year, saying she wanted to return to science, but Jake suspected she had just missed space travel. She and Nova hugged like the old friends they were. Look at you, Lisa said, all grown up and important. I'm not that important, Nova protested. You're one of the most influential diplomats in the galaxy, Lisa countered. You've negotiated 3 major treaties this year alone. You're important whether you like it or not. They ate together, the whole crew and their special guest. The conversation flowed easily, mixing English and Vrelnari languages. Jokes and serious discussions, memories and dreams for the future. Later that night, after Nova had returned to her own ship, Jake stood on the bridge alone. The Horizon's Edge was preparing to leave orbit tomorrow, heading out to explore another distant sector. You're thinking about the old days, Ryan said, joining him. Am I that obvious? Only to someone who's known you for 15 years. Ryan looked out at the stars. Do you ever regret it? Taking Nova aboard? Starting all of this? Jake was quiet for a long moment. No, I've never regretted it. Even with everything that happened, every moment of fear and danger and doubt, I would make the same choice again. Because it was the right thing to do. The right thing almost got us killed. Almost doesn't count. Jake smiled. Besides, look at what came from it. An alliance that makes both our peoples stronger. Colonies like Unity, where our children will grow up together. A future where humans and Vrilnari see each other as friends, not threats. You're an optimist. Captain, someone has to be. They stood together in comfortable silence. Two old friends who had been through war and peace and everything in between. Outside, stars stretched into infinity, full of possibilities and dangers and wonders waiting to be discovered. The next morning, as the horizon's edge prepared to leave Unity, Jake received a message from Empress Sharakai herself. It was rare for the Empress to contact him directly. Usually they communicated through official channels, Captain Morrison. Her image said from the screen, "I am told you hosted my granddaughter yesterday. Thank you for continuing to be a part of her life." "It's always a pleasure, Your Majesty." "I wanted to tell you something," Sharakai continued. "Something I should have said years ago. You saved more than my granddaughter's life that day. You saved my son's legacy. You saved our two peoples from a war neither side would have won. You saved my own honor by forcing me to see the truth. For all of this, you have my eternal gratitude." Jake didn't know what to say. The Empress was not known for showing emotion or making personal statements. "Your Majesty, I just did what I thought was right." "That is precisely what makes it remarkable," Sharakai said. "In a universe full of people who do what is easy or profitable or safe, you chose what was right. That is the mark of true character. I hope you will continue to explore the stars, Captain. The galaxy needs more people like you." The message ended. Jake sat back in his chair, feeling humbled and honored. He had never sought recognition or glory. He had just tried to do his job and help a child in need. But sometimes that was enough to change the world. The horizon's edge left orbit and jumped to faster than light speed. They had new worlds to explore, new discoveries to make, new adventures waiting in the darkness of space. The crew went about their duties with practiced efficiency. In his quarters, Jake kept one picture on his desk. It was from Nova's first day on the ship 10 years ago. She was tiny and scared, wrapped in a blanket, her amber eyes wide and uncertain. Beside her stood Lisa, smiling and protective. Jake looked at that picture often. It reminded him why he did this job. Not for the glory or the adventure or the discovery, though those were all wonderful things. He did it because sometimes when you reached out to help someone different from yourself, you could change the universe. The war that almost started over a cub had become the peace that was built on compassion. And somewhere in the galaxy, in classrooms and conference rooms and family homes, people told the story of Captain Jake Morrison and the little Vrilnari he refused to abandon. It was a good story. It was a true story. It was a story about the best parts of humanity and the possibility that existed when beings chose understanding over fear, cooperation over conflict, and love over hate. The horizon's edge sailed on through the stars, carrying its crew new horizons, new challenges, and new opportunities to do